So, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg realized that people don't want to spend a lot of time in the virtual world metaverse that he's created. It's all, if you don't know about it, it's this elaborate virtual world containing all of these amazing scenes and places and studios and offices and places, all virtual, where you insert your avatar, you sit in your pajamas at home, and you basically just live there instead of the real world. Now, Facebook made a giant bet on this by essentially changing the name of their company and starting a parent company called Meta, and this whole concept has dismally failed. People just don't want to be in the metaverse, and Mark Zuckerberg and his colleagues are like, what the hell's going on? Oh, this is so much better than the real world. And that's where I disagree. During COVID lockdowns, so we were faced with Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, trying to get our kids to do virtual learning. If you've ever tried to get a kid to ditch Minecraft and instead just look at little boxes of teachers and students on a screen, it is absolutely impossible. We totally gave up on distant learning. We distanced ourselves from distance learning, and we just didn't do it. And during that time period, our kids just didn't learn anything. And I think a lot of parents went through the same thing. And not only that, they didn't learn the social skills that I think are so essential for functioning in the real world. And this idea that people can go and function in virtual worlds, interacting with their keyboard and typing on things, and then just looking at the avatar who's supposed to be a person and you're supposed to interact with them, it's just all bullshit, people. I don't buy into it at all. It's like face-to-face interaction is what makes us human. To take that away and think we're going to now interact with each other from a screen and that's going to be our new reality, I think that's just the stupidest idea ever. So just a little bit of background on me. In my early 20s, I had had a corporate cubicle job for about 5 years. I was really lucky. I landed this job because I had a portfolio that looked kind of good, and I knew Photoshop, and I knew how to work a computer. So I guess it was rare back then to have a guy who could both draw and operate a computer. And so I got this job. I was in it for 5 years, and then I was just like, man, I am so sick of this damn computer. Just coming in every day, sitting there, typing, making art and giving it to Fortune 500 companies. It was a training company. And so I felt fortunate, but then I felt like I was in this bubble, and I didn't feel like I was progressing socially. And I dated this girl, and she told me how she went to Europe, and she went to Europe alone with a backpack. And basically I was just like, that's super cool. And I wish I'd ever done anything like that. And needless to say, we didn't date anymore. But I thought, man, I should just do that. I should go to Europe with a bike. And I started getting into shape and my camping equipment and just go check out Europe. And especially get acquainted with this whole old world of doing things, this old world of the past. Because in America, we're all about the future. We're about driving the future ahead. And, what's next or on the horizon. We're not about looking back or embracing old ways of doing things. And so what I realized when I landed in Paris and I started biking around is that all the cities and towns there are built on a completely different scale. They're all built for people rather than cars. And to walk around these old cities where the stones are literally chiseled out of quarried rock that's nearby, and they were placed one after another, taking dozens of years to erect buildings. And these cathedrals rise up, and they have stained glass windows, and they've been there for like 600 to 1,000 years. It just blows your mind. And then to see like a bakery that exists there that's been there for 200-300 years, and there's little pubs that are, you walk in and the doorway is really small and you have to stoop to get in because people were like 4 feet tall when the pub was built. It's just incredible to see the history and the walkability and the way you interact with the environment in a city built for people instead of cars. And so that is something that was really striking to me in my 20s. And then when I came back to America, I was like, this whole way that we live, this whole suburban idea, I think it's just stupid. I think it's dumb to think that we always got to be in our cars. We always got to be racing around. We've always got to be stressed and going someplace instead of just using our feet to walk and getting where we need by putting things closer in and not distancing things out so far away, building for cars. And so we're going to do a series of episodes on building Utah of the future. What do we want to see in Utah, in our cities? What do we want to have in our cities? And I'm going to push my agenda, which is we should have more walkability, more bike paths. We got to have more access to nature and trails. If you've got your own agenda of what you'd like to see in the future, feel free to chime in, because I think my vision is pretty awesome, and I've talked to city planners about it. And ever since came back from Europe, I studied urban design, urban planning, and I've interacted with people. And one of the people we're having on the show today is Soren Simonson. He's one of the first people I ever interviewed when I started Utah Stories about 16 years ago. He was just barely coming on as a city council member for the downtown Salt Lake City, and he had this urban planning and architecture background, and he loved Sugar House, and I love Sugar House just because it was so walkable. You could walk to places, and you could walk to all these parks, and there were all these destinations built in, and it was built and designed basically before the car, and all the coolest neighborhoods in and around Salt Lake, Utah, and really the United States for that matter, the best ones are built pre-car. And that's because they were built at a human scale instead of a scale for cars and vehicles. And so today that's what we're going to be talking about on the show, and we're really excited to start this new chapter of the Utah Stories show. We'll hope you'll be involved and chime in and give us your comments. We've gotten so many comments in the last few months. I really appreciate that. We've also gotten a lot of subscribers to the magazine. Speaking of the real world, you don't have to tune in with an operating system or have big tech censoring your reading habits if you just subscribe to Utah Stories magazine, which is a paper product, and paper is a scarce resource, and we don't kill a tree for no reason. We really scrutinize every single article that comes in, and my wife's the assignment editor. I'm the executive editor, and we've got awesome stories this month in our Halloween edition. It's Cheers and Bon Appetit. It's best local cocktails and mixologists in Utah, as well as like unsolved mysteries. There's a public database full of mysteries that you can help solve. That kind of goes into what we've been talking about with the possibility of there being a homeless serial killer and how that seems to be falling through the cracks with the Salt Lake City Police Department, but also stories on paranormal Ogden. Our food stories by Ted Scheffler are always awesome. So if you'd like to subscribe to the magazine and help support us and help support all of our journalists and printing on paper, go ahead and go out to utahstories.com, hit the subscribe button, and we'll send this to you for $2 a month, $24 for the entire year. And stay tuned, because we have Soren Simonson coming up, followed by a guy from Envision Utah. We just found out Ari Bruning can't come, but his second in command is coming out to just talk about the future of Utah, Salt Lake, and our cities. So that's coming up. I'll see you soon.